Good afternoon. So, our previous episodes have all really been about nature and about the animals. And I thought that today I want to do something a little bit different just for interest. And I want to talk about what motivated me and guided me in the direction to become a field guide. So, when I started guiding, quite interestingly enough, there weren't really many mentors around. The Field Guides Association, I think, had just started maybe a year prior to that. And the other thing is that there was no internet, no guide courses. So as a result of that, we pretty much had to find our own way in terms of familiarizing ourselves with the environment, the bush, the animals, and so on and so forth. But the two things that were around at the time was one's own ability to go into the veld, into the bush, and learn just by being there. And then the other thing, of course, were books. So throughout my guiding career, but especially in the beginning stages, there was a couple of books, storybooks based on game rangers and field guides that had a profound effect on and influence on me keeping myself motivated and as a result of that growing continuously in the industry. So I was very lucky. I grew up on a farm, a cattle farm. I rode horse most of my life. I've always had this passion for horses. My parents took us to the Kruger National Park many times when we were young. And I never really thought about becoming a field guide or a game ranger. For me, it just happened naturally. I was lucky. I always like to use the phrase, my soul naturally just gravitated into it. So books are important in the study and familiarization of becoming a field guide or a game ranger. There's many different books. There's field guides, books on trees, books on birds. But the more important stories lie in the books that were written by game rangers at the time. And if I have to mention a couple of books that really motivated me and interested me in wanting to develop my skills and my career further as a guide or a game ranger, and understanding that a game ranger and a field guide are slightly different. A game ranger is someone who is involved and responsible for the ecological management of a reserve or an area within a reserve. Whereas a field guide is someone who is the ambassador or the link between the visitors and the bush. So field guides really guide people through wild country, whether it's on foot or in a vehicle. The book I think that's probably at the top of my list in terms of books that have to be read by aspirant field guides, game rangers, or just naturalists alike, is a book written by Harry Voliter. And the book was called The Memories of a Game Ranger. The second author that was influential in me staying motivated and continuously growing as a field guide was Dr. Ian Player, whom is well remembered for his efforts in saving the white rhino from extinction. And he wrote a wonderful book called Zululand, Wilderness, Shadow and Soul. And that book, as far as I know, is still available for purchase currently. The other two authors, and understand the majority of these authors, besides Harry Voliter, were people who established themselves in the Natal Park Sport reserves, and more particularly at the time in Umfolozi Game Reserve, Shishlui Umfolozi. Now it's quite interesting in that that's really where conservation and conservation principles and practices were fine-tuned, were in the Natal Parks Board reserves. And alongside Dr. Ian Player, there were two other people one by the name of Nick Steele, and the other a game ranger called Tony Puli, whose books were of such a nature that one almost couldn't put them down. And Tony Puli wrote two interesting books. The one was called The Adventures of a Crocodile Man, and the other Mashesa, The Making of a Game Ranger. But out of all these books, I think the two who really kept me bound were the two books written by Nick Steele, and he wrote 4 books. He wrote a book called Poachers in the Hills, which is a very good read as well. And then he wrote 3 books based on the implementation and the use of horses in nature conservation. And these books, the titles, one, Take a Horse into the Wilderness, The Bush Life of a Game Warden, and Game Ranger on Horseback, were really the 3 books that, at the time when I started, gave me this impression of how wonderful, wild and adventurous the career path of a game ranger or a field guide must have been like. So I thought I'd just share these authors and books with you. I'm also going to just show you some of the covers at the end of this video with the author names on them. I don't have all the books anymore. Unfortunately, some of these books, especially the ones written by Nick Steele and Tony Puli, are not really, as far as I know, not available to buy anymore. They should be sourced from second-hand bookshops, of which there's a few really good ones. But these books are well worth obtaining and reading, and especially now in this time where we're housebound and we're in a lockdown, I think it's a wonderful idea to maybe grab hold of some of these books if you can. They might be available to order online, and if not, try and get them hopefully when this nightmare is over and we can move around again. But yes, they are well worth reading, and I hope they inspire you certainly as much as they inspired me when I started guiding many years ago.